Welcome to Reds Access, your weekly Cincinnati Reds podcast throughout the entire 2025 season, covering Reds news, games, and more. Follow us across most platforms at Reds Access, Instagram Reds_Access, and TikTok at Reds Access Official. We are your hosts, Collin and Kyler Osterberger, lifelong Reds fans who love to talk ball. This week, we are going through some of our roster projections we has been doing. You missed last week. You missed the starting rotation projections, focusing on the bullpen this week. But first, I want to touch on the the first few couple of games this spring and some way too early hot takes on breakout candidates moving into 2025. For those who did not see on our YouTube channel, we did do our first card unboxing this week. We'll start linking polls and planning on parting with throughout our eBay account, which is also at Reds Access for anybody interested. And polls should be happening at least weekly, depending on what I can find at the old GameStop. But jumping into it, Kyler, the Reds are 2-2 over our first two games, losing the Brewers on a walk-off home run and the Giants as well. The starters have shown out, though. Everybody has looked great except for Will Benson. I believe he's 0 for 3 with a hit by pitch and 3 strikeouts so far. We'll hold off on criticizing Willie Beeman until next week. But I want to talk about some of these breakout candidates and play a little game of over-under on some potential statistics here, Kyler. So, Elly De La Cruz. First 3 at-bats, first 3 balls hit over 100 miles an hour. 2 monster home runs. Elly looks locked in at the plate. We talked about it last week. Let's dive a little bit deeper. Starting with Elly, I want to jump on the MVP train. I think we kind of toyed on it the last few days, but I saw it the first 2 games of spring here. I'm feeling really good. Now, according to Fangraphs, Elly is taking a step back this season, basically across the board. They have been hitting 25 home runs and stealing over 50 bags. So let me ask you this. Is Elly going 30 for 60 this year? Over or under 30 home runs, 60 stolen bases?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, shoot for it.
All right. So I think that I am going to take, what did you say, a 30-60?
We're going 30-60 under.
I'm going to do over, but it's going to be on the bag. So I'm thinking he's going to have more of a 30-70 season. He looked really great at the plate over the weekend. We got to watch a bomb from both sides of the plate by him. I know that throughout the offseason, he's kind of been toying with his stance and his batting approach. He looked really good. So I'm going to do the over. I'm going to do right on the money at 30, but I think he's going to get 70 bags this season.
So here's the thing for me, Kyler, is the BABIP for Elly last year was 360, and Fangraphs, when they do projections, they're looking at that and they're saying, "Oh, that's not sustainable." But I don't think you can look at a standard BABIP with a guy like Elly De La Cruz, man. It's a special guy that has speed that nobody's seen. You can't replicate that on a stat sheet. I think Elly can do whatever his mind is capable of, and I bet he swipes 80 bags this year. I'll one up your 70.
Really?
I don't think he's hitting 30 out, though. He doesn't have the launch angle yet. If he could get that launch angle down, I mean, he'd hit 40 home runs a year. And I want him to hit 30 home runs this year, but I'm thinking something more like 26, closing in on 80. So I guess I'm going to split down the middle on that over-under. We're going to go 26 home runs, 75 stolen bases for me. I think I'm going under on the overall totals here.
Yeah, I agree with you, though. It is hard to kind of estimate what to expect from Elly De La Cruz. He's an athletic freak. He's a 5-tool player. So I kind of just, as we get more seasons under his belt, I think we'll see how he's going to kind of turn out. I think he's going to hit 30. I'm feeling pretty confident and really good about that, but we'll see how the season plays out.
On that note, Kyle, it's funny you brought up the 5-tool player. I try to think, let's say arm, glove, contact, power, speed, right? 5 tools. One that we see in the game these days, though, is swagger. Is that 6th tool. And it really goes a long way. You see a lot of these young guys come up and have the swagger, the moxie to them, making themselves that 6-tool player, elusive 6-tool player. Most prospects coming out are called 5-tool guys. I think that word gets overutilized. But with Elly, I think he has that 6th tool. And I really think he could be something special this year. It's hard to even call him a breakout candidate. But if there's anybody that I think could break out of the awesome put-together season they already had, I think it's Elly De La Cruz.
I agree.
Some other players that have started hot out the gate, Kyler. Brady Singer and Nick Martinez both registered great starts to their spring, respectively. Yesterday, facing the Dodgers, starting rotation, Singer threw 2 innings of 4 strikeout baseball. And also notable is potential starter waiting Carson Spires struck out 5 of his 6 outs. The day before, Nick Martinez threw 2 innings, struck out 3 himself, including throwing 15 straight strikes in the first inning. I'm starting to feel really good about the starting rotation. I was worried about it a little bit, and we're so early in the spring. This is a hot take, but I'm starting to feel really good about him. Singer, who I just confirmed today, has developed a cutter into his arsenal. I think will be a really powerful tool. Seems to be potentially on track to take that next step. Who do you think has better stats at the end of the season and solidifies their spot? I know we were in disagreement last week in that starting rotation, but their spot in the 2 to 3 hole there, that Singer or Martinez there becoming the secondary ace of the staff.
So I'm going to stick with what I said last week. I think Singer is going to be the second guy in the rotation behind Green. I do like Martinez a lot. I don't know. Something feels special about Singer coming to the Reds this season. I know he's projected to throw 170 plus innings with a low 4-point ERA, somewhere in that range, plus 150 strikeouts with a 1.3 whip. So I know those are projections. Obviously, they go as far as they can go, but I'm just feeling really good about Singer this year. I think he's going to solidify in our rotation. I think he's going to throw well. So for me, he's going to stay in my second spot. I think he's going to one-up Martinez, but what are your thoughts? Who are you thinking over there?
I'll take back what I said last week's my thought, man. I think last week I was clowning on Singer a little bit, so I was worried about the fly ball. He has a really low fly ball rate, but I was worried about coming from Kaufman, the Great American, and I am worried about some of that stuff. But he looks really good. Tooled up his changeup, good cutter. Now Martinez, Terry Francona came out last week. Terry Francona says that Martinez is a starter. Nick Martinez commented on it, said he's glad to be a starter. There's something special about taking that ball every 5th day. Between Singer and Martinez, though, I think Singer has more upside. I think Singer is younger. And while they both might play great ball, I think Singer's your guy you give the ball to every 3rd day there, the rotation. I think he has a chance to be the 3-man. I'm still sticking with the Dolo for the 2. I don't want to give up on him yet. But I think of the 2 guys, Singer and Martinez, I could see Singer having the better year. I expect Martinez to regress a little bit this year. A 3.1 ERA, his stuff looked really good at the end of the year, and you can count on him for some solid innings. But I do worry about Martinez's age. I always worry about that in regards to injuries and stuff. And Singer being a young guy with so much upside, I think Singer might have the better year here.
I agree.
As you guys know, we talked about earlier, the big thing we're going to talk about this podcast here today is the bullpen and our projections for that. But before we jump into the projections, I want to jump into, actually, I guess one of the kind of last points we're going to go over, which is who's making the cut, and just kind of talk about some of the first tastes of this bullpen we've seen in spring training so far. So we're talking about guys like Josh Staumont, who got their first taste of action, struck out 2, did walk a hitter, and the gun lit up to 98 miles an hour. So obviously, he still has something left in the tank. I already mentioned Carson Spires' start to the spring, and Ian Gibaut tosses scoreless inning in relief as well. The Reds have guys like Santillan already embedded in that bullpen, and they really only have one roster spot left between these 3 guys that would be fighting for it in Spires, Gibaut, and Staumont. I think it'll be an interesting spring, as former standout Staumont is not a part of the Reds' 40-man roster right now. Having Gibaut really duking it out, I imagine Spires starts in AAA, in my opinion. So I guess who do you profile as breaking out, quote unquote, and more so breaking into the big league club here after spring training?
Yeah. So my thought process is Ian. I think that he's going to be the breakout. I think he's going to land that last spot in the bullpen. He's an inning eater. If he can stay healthy, obviously. I know he had a forearm injury in the past, but with my take, I think he is going to get that last bullpen spot.
I think that, one of the big things about Gibaut, Kyler, is we both really like the guy as a pitcher. I mean, we're both real strong on that. And I love everything about Ian Gibaut and the type of player he is. He goes out there and he just eats innings and gets outs. And as you mentioned, still recovering from an injury last year, definitely got overworked in 23. But I know I can rely on him. Staumont, when's the last time he had a full season? Did we say it was like 22?
Yeah, I think it was 22.
I mean, so he's not stayed healthy. Up until this year, the rumor was his fastball was gone, or he at least couldn't locate it. I hope things go really good for him. But Jabot's trusted by Derek Johnson. Stahlmont's an NRI, so non-roster invitee for the spring. And honestly, if he keeps playing this way in the spring, I imagine he finds his way back to the big leagues this year. I hope he does. But I don't think it's on the Reds roster. I think our bullpen's too deep. With Barlow being signed, it leaves one spot for the bullpen. And I just don't think that goes to Stahlmont going into the end of spring training. I imagine he'll get released pretty early on. If anything, just a gesture of goodwill from the Reds front office to make sure he signs the team.
Yeah, I think we really bolstered that bullpen, even the rotation over the offseason. So I just think that he kind of lost that spot with all the ads that we've done in the last couple months.
100%. One of the, I guess the last guy we'll talk about here before we jump into the main segment, one of the big offseason additions, and I say big, quote unquote, is a 1-year, $5 million contract. I think there's a player option for year 2, was Austin Hayes. Austin Hayes, second game of the spring. I believe he was hitting cleanup, maybe 5th. Goes 3 for 3 against the big league Dodgers team. Goes deep twice, a 2-out RBI double, or rather 2-run RBI double in the first inning. Overall, Austin Hayes 3 for 3 with a double and 6 RBIs there the other day against the Dodgers on the 24th. So saving the best for last, it's been well documented that Austin Hayes wasn't healthy last season. He would have put up 28 home runs at GABP in 2023. Getting out of some of those expansive, the Orioles, Camden Yards, left field isn't helping out a right-handed hitter any. And it was a huge game for him. He pitched, he faced 3 different pitchers I want to call out here. So Tanner Scott, Blake Trinan, and Tyler Glasnow, and he hammered all of them. FanGraph projected Austin Hayes as a 99 weighted runs created plus, so average player. They have him in a slash line of 256, 310, 431. So 310 on base, 431 slugging. Kyler, this is a 741 OPS. That make him the 3rd most productive hitter in the Reds lineup, assuming he plays every day, behind Ellie De La Cruz and Tyler Stevenson last year. They've only got him projected at 16 bombs. What are your thoughts as far as that overall OPS and also home runs, over, under? And I'll tell you just straightforward, I'm going over here. If he plays like he's playing in the spring right now, I easily see a 20-plus home run, 750-plus OPS season from Hayes.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to agree on your take there. I'm going to take the over. I think he's going to have 20 bombs or more. Obviously, big thing, maintain his health. But I agree with you. I'm taking the over on this as well.
Well, we get to the main segment here. I want to touch on something real quick. I don't know if I told you about it, actually, Kyler, when it happened. But yesterday I was on Twitter. I guess you could say making fun of a guy. I don't know. It was Major League prospect for the Reds, Cam Collier. Cam had a 2-out RBI, had a double, 2-strike double in the game with the Dodgers, and well documented, real choked up on the bat. So, and I may have made a tweet that was speaking to how he looked like Joey Votto in one way, which was his hitting approach. But for those of you guys that don't know, there was a lot of preseason buzz about Cam Collier not being in baseball shape, gaining a few pounds, not being ready to play, that kind of stuff. And I may have made a comment that he looked way out of shape for a 20-year-old kid and that he needed to get together or it was going to be too late. Well, I believe it ended with "youch" at the end of that tweet. Lord behold, I go on Twitter this morning and I see like and repost from Cameron Collier on my tweet. And man, I thought it must be a fan account. I'm pretty sure he's keeping receipts on me. I think he's keeping receipts on me, for being honest here, Kyler. He saved that. He liked it. That is the real Cam Collier who saw me call him a fatty. And I feel so bad.
I think he may have hit the X and he may have searched up his name. Maybe your tweet popped up first. Just like the timing.
There's a lot of players that do that. And that's why you never add a player, right? And I didn't add the player. He went into Discover on X and typed in his own name is what he did.
He's trying to prove a point. He's going to prove you wrong this season.
I'm going to be like the background of a hype video where it's like having this pumping iron. But guys, main segment today, Reds bullpen. Big question for us is who's our closer. So we're going to go through step by step here and we're going to rank this bullpen. But just to touch on it really quick, the Reds bullpen, I think, and Kyler and I, both of our eyes, is one of the strengths this year. Names like Ashcraft, Santillan, Mole, Suter, Pagan, and Alexis Diaz are well known to the team. Additions are locked in are guys like Rogers and Barlow. That last spot's going to be fought over by a few guys, though. We mentioned already Josh Staumont, Carson Spires, Ian Jabot. So before we talk about any sort of position battles for that last spot, I know we touched on it already, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper at the end. Let's talk about the locks, Kyler. So I want to know what we expect from guys, and we'll start with Graham Ashcraft, well-known, fire starter, bulldog. Ashcraft cannot get guys out the third time through the lineup. Everyone accepts Dougie to move to the bullpen. I think it's pretty well known this fact, and I think he's a strong candidate for a closer with this high 90 stuff. I worry about the lack of swing and miss. I think that needs to be there for the back of games. And so, Kyler, I guess my question to you is, tell us a little bit, where do you see his role fitting in this season?
Yeah, so I think there may have been an interview. I believe Tito said it. Maybe it was just some articles on it. But I saw as well that Ashcraft, I think the idea is for him to move to the bullpen, just with the struggles last season, like you said, with the third time around in the lineup. I know Tito expresses that he values starting pitchers that can pitch deep into games. That's important to him. I think Ashcraft, like we said, struggles in that area on the third time around. So I think Ashcraft moving to the bullpen would probably be the best spot for him this year, especially with all the additions we've added to our starting rotation. And then I actually pulled some stats. So I think he would be a great setup, in my opinion. I think that when he's facing hitters the first time, he's great. Like he's crafty. I think he's smart with his pitching, his command. But when you get in those later innings, it's not going. So he has, when facing hitters for the first time, he has a strikeout to walk ratio of 3-1, holds the opposing hitters to a slugging percentage of .396. His rate was 4%, which is what you're looking for in a good relief pitcher. So for me, I have Ashcraft as a setup. I do think there's a strong possibility of a closer. I agree with you on that aspect, but I'm going to save who I think the actual closer will be for later.
I think back to that picture of Graham Ashcraft just like going like this and like, like the,
Yeah.
and I think, and I'm going to see that at the end of games, man. Yeah, walk rate of 4% is great. Obviously, that's what you're looking for. It's league average. And a lot of guys that are high leverage, high profile closers walk a lot of guys. So you want a guy that can really command that strike zone. I see Ashcraft as a high leverage setup guy as well. I think he can turn to him for tight games. That first time through a lineup, like you said, I can trust him to get swing and miss outs. I just took the question, though, is on his fastball, if you get back to 98, 99, 100. Last year was around 96. I don't know if he was trying to dial it back. I noticed Hunter Green did the same thing. I just worry about he's got to get the fastball back up to be an effective closer because in today's league, man, closers are coming in throwing 101. Right. And we need a guy like that. But I definitely think I agree with you. And you guys will see here we're doing a little share screen on my Photoshop. We're just doing a little, building our own bullpen, little MLB The Show franchise mode, building the bullpen here and setting it up. But I agree. I have Ashcraft as one of my setup guys. So second guy to kind of note here, Tony Big T Santillan. A little bit of a wild card coming into 2025. 6'3", listed at 285. I'd imagine he's a little bit over 300. He had an amazing 2022, my bad, before being shut down in 2023. Rumors were due to weight-causing injury. He comes in 2024 and delivers 29 games with 3.0 ball, strikes out almost 14 per 9 innings, and only walks 3 per 9. These are all things you're looking for in a guy. But how's he fit into your pen?
Yeah, so I actually have him as a setup as well. And my reason for that is just his ability for strikeouts. It's definitely a strength for him. He's also young. I know that sometimes he does struggle with the walks and the command, which can kind of just impact his effectiveness. But here's kind of the stat I'm pulling out that he was a starter for a lot of his minor league career. And I think that's going to help him kind of in those more high-risk innings where it kind of counts more. I think that the Reds might kind of lean on him a little bit more in the bullpen. So I have him as a setup. It's definitely an inning eater. So that's where I'm going to land him on my graph. What are you thinking, Collin?
I'll be short and sweet. I don't mean to give away all what everybody is watching for, or what everybody is watching for, rather, so early. But I think that Tony Santillan is our closer this year. He's got the fastball for it. He's got the off-speed stuff for it. He's got the grit. When he takes the mound, I mean, you see a big guy. Reminds me of you can think of Jonathan Broxton type guy, big old dude coming out there just throwing BBs. Man, I was going to use another word. We'll keep it friendly, but throwing BBs out there. I think he's our closer, so I'm going to throw him into my closer category. Maybe you can change my mind later with some of these other guys. But I've got Santi on here as a closer, and guys, the reason why I've got Seth and closer together here is I'm under the impression this closer game this year is a fair game and could change pretty wildly. I don't think this is anybody's job. Somebody's going to win it out of spring, but if they don't perform, it's I think it'll be a pretty quick turnaround here, and we'll see a change sooner rather than later. First lefty on the list, Kyler, Taylor Rogers. Taylor Rogers, of course, traded for by the Reds. Had his first outing of the spring the other day and struggled to find the strike zone. Personally, I didn't feel like his stuff looked that great. It didn't look that sharp. I'm not sure if I can rely on that for high leverage outs. I know it was the first outing of the spring, and this is all way too early hot take, but I just wasn't super impressed. I know the guy's 35 or about 35. We lack strong left-handed pitching. Our only two other lefties are Brent Suter and Sam Mole. How does Rogers fit into your bullpen?
Yeah, so he is getting up there. I think he's 34. So the age is there. But I think he'll do well in our bullpen. I know that he had a little bit of a tough time the other day when he saw some action. But I think leveraging, and I think Tito is going to leverage his experience to help some of the younger guys kind of develop, understand the game a little bit better, maybe get some insight on that. But I have Rogers as a middle relief. I know he's had some issues last year. He didn't look great the other day. But I think he has that middle relief position. I think his expertise is going to really help some of these younger guys. I think Tito is going to lean on him for maybe just critical situations where maybe he's got just a little bit more insight than the younger guys going out there.
So I think that you look at David Bell, right? And he whose name shall not be spoken, And I looked at David Bell. He played matchups all the time. When lefties came in, they faced lefties, righties with righties, and he was always selling guys in and out. No matter what the stats said, if it was a lefty, they were going in with a lefty. I think Taylor Rogers is a middle relief guy. I'm reserving the other two spots, long relief and closer or setup, for the other lefties. I think Suter slots well in a long relief, and I will jump into that here soon. But Rogers' lengthy delivery would make you think that long, lanky, left-handed, awkward delivery you think would be an easy connection to get lefties out. But one of the stats I want to pull up, Kyler, is that Rogers is a lefty that can't get lefties out. So lefties had an OPS of 786 on him last year, hit 290 at the end of the year. That tells me he's a middle reliever, not a relied-on lefty. If you can't rely on your left-handed guy to get left-handers out, then you have a lefty that eats innings. So I think Rogers is a middle reliever. I know he's had closing experience. We talked about it last week, but we got better options. This is a good bullpen. I think he's an innings eater.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was a pickup to, like you said, and just inning eater. I think they're going to just lean on that expertise, his experience in the league. But I totally agree with you. Middle relief, I wouldn't put him in super critical moments. I don't trust it. That's just my opinion.
Sure. So one of the other guys, I don't know if I feel like I can trust, but who put up really good stats looking it over last year was Brent Suter. Suter played his role well in 24 in his first season with the Reds. I think he was hurt for a little while. So was Emilio Pagan. Suter threw in 47 games. He threw 65 innings. So Suter was eating up multiple innings in a lot of those games. Held opponents to a 3.15 ERA and gave up 10 home runs, making his leverage in tight games a little concerning. I think his home run numbers make me weary of throwing him in there in tight spots. But his ability to go long innings definitely helps the ball club. So Suter is my left-handed long relief guy for this bullpen. Innings eater when we're out of games. We need to get back into a game. Gives up a couple home runs here and there, but overall, solid guy. Does not give up a lot of contact other than home runs. And I think he needs some innings for us.
I'm right there with you. I totally agree. I have Suter in my long relief role. Just based on his 2024 stats. I know he can go multiple innings. He's looked solid. So just obviously working on giving up the long ball. I know it's hard in Great American Ballpark, but if he can work on that, turn around a lot. But I have him in my long relief just because of inning eater. He can go out there for multiple innings and get the job done.
Well, even if he can't go out there and eat it, even if he can't go out there and stop giving up home runs, right? I mean, the solo shots are okay. The solo shots aren't my concern. It's when you have a game that you're down 4-2 and bring him in for a left-handed specialist and the bases are loaded. And I know this guy gives up a home run every 4 innings he pitches. My worry is this is going to be the guy to go for that grand slam when we lose the game. And on a team that has aspirations to make the playoffs, if not the World Series, and a bullpen that in a lot of ways, Kyler, I think is good enough to do it, you can't trust those situations to a guy that gives up a long ball like that. You just can't do it.
I agree.
Last lefty we have is Sam Moll. You guys might remember the Reds traded Sam Moll for I believe it was Joe Boyle, part of their big 2023 splash, making a push to the playoffs. We get to the trade deadline. If we get Sam Moll, a 4.96 ERA reliever from the Oakland A's, one of the worst teams in the league that year. Well, Sam didn't listen to the haters. He ends up throwing at a .73 ERA over 23 games and a little bit over 24 innings. In his first full season with the Reds, I believe he was hurt a little while last year as well. So, this might not be his 100%. He posted a 3.35 ERA in 48 games. I'm throwing Moll into a high leverage lefty role, but I have to imagine him as middle relief just because there's still another slot and setup I think goes to somebody else. So, Kyler, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. You think he's still middle relief, or are you throwing him into some of those tougher roles for you?
Yeah, so I'm right there with you. I agree, middle relief. I think we're on the same page here. Obviously, being a lefty, he did have a strong 24 season. I think, like you said, he dealt with a little bit of injuries. But I'm going to still keep him in that middle relief. But I think they will use him, like you said, in some critical situations, but just middle relief guy for me in my bullpen.
One of the other guys we made a splash last offseason and signed, so not Moll who we acquired, but we signed in the offseason. One of the big names was Emilio Pagan. Emilio Pagan, of all the guys we signed, had a really tough time. He got hit around in 24, had a 4.5 ERA, and it was the whole season too, by the way. I looked through the splits trying to figure out a way to, really just give me some good signs about Emilio Pagan. It was tough. He didn't give up a lot of home runs. I mean,
it's one way to look at it.
So he had a 4.96 ERA in the second half last year, and the opponents hit 297 off of him. The only good thing you can put to that is that the BABIP against him was 360 in the second half. So when they got the ball in play, they were getting hits 20% more often than what average is in the MLB. And there's different things to go in at. The Reds had one of the worst defenses in the league last year, so you'd expect that. But also, I'm sure the guys got a little lucky. I would throw Emilio Pagan into the middle relief role just because I looked over his stats and I didn't see any indication that he could go multiple innings, multiple days in a row. But I think Emilio Pagan is a depth middle reliever here. I don't think you're throwing him into a game that you got the lead. I think you're keeping him for those games that you're getting blown out. Just need a guy to come in.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you again. It seems like sometimes we like to agree on the exact same thing, but he definitely struggled. I think his strikeout ability, it's decent. It can make him valuable in late inning situations, but I just don't trust him. I'm right there with you. Middle relief. I think maybe blowout games. Maybe if we have a couple run lead, he's good to get in there, kind of give some other guys rest, but I wouldn't be throwing him in any tied games, any one run lead games. I just don't trust him.
Speaking of guys I don't trust, make or break year for Alexis Diaz. A guy I consider to be one of the better relievers in the game prior to running out of gas at the end of 23. Did everything he could to lose the closer role in 2024 from my perspective. Every year he's been in the league, he's gotten worse. It got so bad last year, he was basically a league average pitcher, only .9 WAR. He had a 1.84 ERA in 70-plus games in 2023 or in 2022 and barely kept it under 4 last year. He seems to be running out of gas. I think Bell might have used him too much in 22, and I hope he recovers. But I'd imagine he's on a short leash in any leverage role. I'll throw him in that setup role, but not easily. I don't know if I have a lot of faith left in Alexis Diaz. Maybe you feel differently.
Yeah, so actually I do feel differently to an extent. So I think that Diaz will start as our closer for 25. But I agree with you. I think Tito is going to have him on a very short leash, and if he doesn't see what he likes, or Diaz struggles, I think that Tito pulls that plug. He did save 28 out of his 32 chances last season. But like you said, he's been regressing the last couple years. I think that leash has just gotten shorter and shorter, especially with Tito being the new manager. I just don't think that there's going to be multiple chances this season for Diaz to stay the closer. But I do think he's going to start. But I think that, I mean, there could be changes as soon as April, maybe earlier. Who knows? But Diaz is my closer for now, but it could change.
It's funny you mentioned the 28 out of 32 chances last year, man. Those are 28 times I lost hair on the top of my head. They weren't even saves.
Saves a save.
I guess that's right. A win's a win. I would like some easier ones this year.
I agree.
So,
hey, we're Bengals fans too. I think it's just what happens to people that live in Cincinnati.
I can hope and dream we get easier wins this year. Right. Last guy we signed that's going to make the bullpen here before we get to the last spot of the bullpen and finish up the show. Scott Barlow last year, ERA neared 4.5. His FIP was closer to a 4.0. Overall in his career, strong above average, high leverage reliever. He struggled with walk numbers in recent years, walked 5 an inning in 2024. What are your thoughts on Scott Barlow?
Yeah, so I kind of you highlighted the stats. He's struggled, but he's maintained average. I think he's an average relief pitcher, bullpen pitcher. I think with all the additions in the offseason that we've done, I just don't think Barlow is going to have any chance of any critical moments. He's my middle relief. There's nothing special, but there's nothing bad that like makes him stick out like a sore thumb, I guess. So middle relief, I think they'll just kind of use him when they need him and probably not any high critical situations.
No, you're right. I think the bullpen just good enough this year. A really good bullpen. We're talking about two guys in this bullpen with an over 4 ERA last year. Well, Ashcraft did, but this is the guy I think is going to be really good in this role.
Well, Ashcraft was a starter last year as well.
Right, that's what I'm saying. In the first 2 times through the lineup, the guy was nailed. So I think he'll continue that. I don't think they will turn to Barlow for anything super high leverage, but I think he'll be your standard middle reliever. In games we're winning, he's still coming in. But listen, Kyler, I just want to say, man, we're talking about a guy with a 4.5 ERA last year. That's still at a 4.0 FIP and a strong season overall in his worst season as a major leaguer. Man, we've came a long way. Guys like Jake, I remember specifically you and I sitting in our uncle's basement or my uncle's basement watching J.J. Hoover come into that ball game and just thinking, oh, my God, we've lost this game. And J.J. Hoover, Rookie Davis pins, man, those days are over. Who was not even Rookie Davis is who I'm thinking of. Who was the guy? He was the Sour Mono. Sour Mono is who I'm thinking of. Man, we had some tough pins for a while. But I think middle reliever too for Barlow, which leaves one spot in the bullpen. So the Reds are projected to take 9 guys in the pen, 5 starters. That's 14 and bring 11 position players. I'm thinking this goes to Jabot, who's a tested and true option, but I doubt he has a long leash. Carson Spires, we mentioned earlier, 5 of 6 struck out in his first outing. I think he's first to get the call. And being that Jabot's out of options, if he doesn't succeed, and we got a guy like Spires that has options, I imagine Spires gets that call and Jabot's gone. But we've got guys coming up too, and like Luis May and otherwise we knocking on the door. And overall, the Reds bullpen being a strength of this team's a good thing. I'll give Jabot my last spot, Kyler, but I'm not sure it's a long leash, like I said. And I hope he does well. I really do. But we got a lot of guys, man, a lot of depth this year in the pen.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I kind of thought about 23. Ian was the best reliever behind Diaz in 23. I know he had an injury in 24. He did look great over the weekend, I think. But I'm right there with you. I think that he has my last spot. But with the additions we made, the prospects we have like ready, I think it is a short leash as well. I think that he could lose that spot very quickly. So it's another one of those, just kind of see how spring training goes. For now, I'll have him as middle relief, but we'll see what happens.
So that leaves two guys out. That leaves Josh Staumont, who, again, I think we both kind of agree if he has a good spring, he'll get picked up by somebody else. Hopefully his major league journey's not over. He's only 31. It leaves Carson Spires, too, who is a really intriguing, I believe he's 24 or 25, young guy. He's got some good movement. It reminds me of kind of like the Luke Weaver situation. He's not put the success together long-term at the big league level, but he can get outs, and you can see the stuff he has when he comes into the game. So I'm always confident, man, and I hope that he can put it together. And I think he has big things coming in the future. It might just be not at the start of this year with the depth. Injuries happen in the bullpen, right? So,
right,
especially with the guys we've got some guys with injury history. So I think he'll be first to get the call. I imagine Staumont's not with the team come the end of spring training. Nothing against the guy. I hope he finds a major league job, but
yeah, I think it's just it's a tough job to hold right now with the Reds bullpen and rotation. I think there's just so many guys that can be used and utilized in so many different spots. So I really think that last spot could be switching, could be anyone, honestly.
No, I completely agree. So you guys can see on the screen there, how we're setting up our bullpens. If we are Nick Krall and the Cincinnati Reds, or Tito Francona, we're setting up the bullpen there for the opening day lineup. This is our look. We have different opinions on closers, but I think for the most part, otherwise, we're pretty much in the same boat on where guys fall into play here moving into the season. But guys, that's going to wrap up this episode of Reds Access. Big thanks, of course, for tuning in. We really appreciate all the support over the last couple of weeks that we've started this channel. Tune in next week, obviously. We're going to be starting to go over some of the position players. We have the infield and outfield still to cover before our big opening day show previous to opening day, which, of course, will be Thursday the 27th. So on March 25th, big opening day show. Kyler and I will be back soon with more breakdowns, hot takes, and everything you need to know about your Cincinnati Redlegs. And, of course, be sure to follow and subscribe to keep the conversation going on social media and also to keep a lookout for our next and newest episodes every week. Rounding third and headed for home, though, for Kyler Osterberger and myself, guys, go Reds.
Go Reds.